Hey, well, welcome to this edition of the AI Infrastructure Roundtable. I'm very excited to welcome John Holden from the City of Raleigh. They have one of the most robust ecosystems regionally, but specifically Raleigh has won awards in 2022. They're recognized by IDC. I find the region to be just one of the most innovative there is. John, welcome. Would you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about what you're doing there in Raleigh?
Sure. Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here and great to share some of my experiences and work here. I've been in Raleigh in this role, which was a new role when I took it, just over 2.5 years. Raleigh's been a smart city long before that, right? Been using data and GIS, et cetera. So my role has been in more strategic initiatives, right? So I'm in the Office of Strategy and Innovation. My background is in economic development. So I'm more of the strategic thinker and how do we put these things together to continue to improve the city, to use the technology in ways that improve the life of the city for citizens and obviously operations within the city. Built within that is how to do pilot projects. Again, I've been here 2.5 years. I love the city, love the region. You alluded to the innovation ecosystem here. It's vibrant and arguably one of the best in the nation. So it's part that, it's part the entrepreneur ecosystem. It's part how we work with data, and there's just a lot of exciting things going on. I'm looking forward to share some of them with you and your audience.
Yeah, well, I do find your region to be, to me, the smartest region in the country. You have some rivals in California. Arizona's got some good stuff going on, but I think you guys really, from a regional perspective, approach this maybe because you were founded the Research Triangle and all the university, but you really do approach this collegially and cooperatively, and it shows.
Yeah, this region has a history of regional collaboration and coordination. I mean, you can always improve that. I don't like to say one is better than the other in terms of regions or cities. Although we do, one of my slides, we've talked about the maturity of a smart city or a smart region. That's not a judgment. It's just some have done it longer and moved towards more of a comprehensive, human-centered approach versus ad hoc, just try a project here, try a project here. So, we still got a long way to go along that maturity scale, but we can talk about that as well. I just think it's really important to learn from each other and collaborate, whether it be at events or seminars like this or webinars, whatever we call this. Just to share and learn is critical in this environment where things happen so fast. I mean, we were just talking, 2.5 years ago, who was talking about AI? No one, right? 2 years ago, really? And now you can't turn the corner without talking about AI or buying it in the grocery store. I mean, it's a shame too, because it loses some of its real meaning that way. But at any rate, the world.
Well, there's many flavors, right, of it. So
Yeah,
I think what I'll do now is I'll butt out and I'll let you tell the story, because I think folks will learn the most from hearing your story, because it is very impressive. Okay. So let me add your slides, and then I'm going to bow out.
Good deal. Well, again, I've cobbled these slides together from a couple of different presentations, but at the end of the day, what's a smart city mean to us? It's about data sharing. It's about devices, collecting data, making things more efficient. But at the end of the day, it should be about making the community a better place to live for everyone, right? And using technology is one way to do that. It's not the only way, but it's one way to do that. When we think about AI, that just allows us to do it faster, quite frankly. We use an analogy of trees in our smart city approach that, essentially you work from the roots up, and you define the needs and the initiatives, the foundational work that you have to do. And at the end of the day, the kind of what we think of is we move it forward, and then we do the pilot projects. We call the pilot projects the leaves. And then after the leaves sprout, they obviously create nutrition down to the roots, and it continues to build the community as a network. This is a very complex slide, but at the end of the day, we base our smart city work on our strategic plan. So we have used community surveys and various other ways to implement a strategic plan. We are now launching our new strategic plan for 2025 through 28. And built within that is initiatives and really the Smart Raleigh initiatives, and how we use certain categories within Smart Raleigh to, because the smart city world or the technology world has different acronyms and names. So I like to use the same as those in terms of transportation, public safety, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's about integrating it into the strategic plan. There's a bunch of diagrams of basically how we've built an internal network to be sure we're collaborating and coordinating across departments so that we don't silo things, which is another major initiative in the smart city world, is that, at one time we had cameras up at intersections, counting cars and doing things. And then we realized that stormwater might be able to use those same cameras to look at how the water is reacting on the streets. So again, we have an internal system here on how we do pilot projects and coordinate across SIM. But at the end of the day, we want to start with data, right? That's really the foundation of smart city work. And at the end of the day, the best way AI is going to work, right? So I'm not going to go through these, but we've developed a data strategy on how we organize our data. The number one, I was in a presentation yesterday. The number one thing to think about is organizing your data, securing it, updating it, keeping it updated, and that includes the metadata associated with the data, because whatever AI engines you're going to use, there's some inherent bias in each of those. So you have to be really careful that all your data is tagged appropriately and the right sources are there, right, at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people know that inherently, but it's worth repeating over and over. Again, we collect data from all kinds of places, and many cities are doing this now. And so we are awash in data, and then AI comes along and helps us essentially makes more sense of that data, but also creates more data itself. So that too is a challenge. And so we need to keep all that in mind in the life cycle of a smart city. Now, one of the key areas we do, and please stop me at any time, but one of the things we do is we test or pilot projects. That's kind of cliche at this point. It's kind of common, but it's an important part of how a local jurisdiction can try a new technology, a new data source, or a new AI model for that matter to improve some operation or something for the city. So the smart city pilots are an inherent part of that process, and they too have their own process to gather data and test. Again, the challenges, we don't do it just for the technology. Pilots are important, but we have to move beyond those. And as in every jurisdiction and across regions, the challenges are sharing, right? And keeping people involved, engaging other people so you're not duplicating efforts. I can go on to a number of samples now of some of the things we have done or are doing, unless you want to stop there. But
yeah, well, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions,
Sure.
and I'm glad you pivoted right here because, I visited you when you had the big meeting, the Connected Triangle, and I saw the region in action, and probably public safety and transportation are the two that cross-jurisdictionally can really impact people if you're coordinated. So, this, how, the process, you said technology for technology's sake and all, this process of arriving at platforms and ways of doing this, how do you, how difficult is that to balance all the different possibilities and come together on one functional methodology.
It's very difficult just within our own city and jurisdiction. I would say the same is probably true in other jurisdictions, let alone try to do it across jurisdictions. So the latter, we're not there yet in terms of a real mature integrated system, if you will. We're doing some projects cross jurisdiction on a case by case basis, and where we share data on a vendor by vendor and case by case basis. For example, we're doing some monitoring of. We've done a lot of heat island work in the city, and other communities around the Triangle are interested in that work. I.e., how do we better improve? We're getting hotter and hotter. How do we do things to improve that? And the only way to do it is to start to track that data. And so we're starting to do that across the region. But again, that's one use case, one example. It's not an integrated system at this point. So scale back to the city, and I'm going to share some of that in a little bit. We've basically decided to use our GIS as the platform to which we integrate data and use cases, because at the end of the day, every use case takes place somewhere on the planet, somewhere in the city that you can geocode.
And do you need to customize? Does your IT department have to, put together certain platforms and then you customize so that it gives you the data as you need it?
We have a really strong relationship with ESRI, and fortunately we're large enough, we're big enough to have, some staff that can customize some things within that platform. They work with us as well as a number of other partners, let's be clear, depending on the use case, right? Including video analytics, which that slide alludes to, and I can share some more. But also there's air quality and heat monitoring devices that we can consider in the future adding into the system, if you will. Even as we get into using drones, that data can be integrated into the GIS. Essentially, we're quite fortunate. We've developed a pretty robust digital twin of our city, and we're looking at as the platform. The digital twin, of course, is built on a GIS, so on the Esri GIS.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's gotten to the point where it's also three-dimensional in terms of measuring building heights and potentially doing permitting using, we're not doing this yet, but, there's ways that drones might be able to use in 3 dimensions to continue to improve the safety of the community.
Yeah, I know one city, Coral Gables, which when I talk to the best of the best, I think they're way up there. They've loaded zoning information. They have a very sophisticated platform, and citizens can access it now and, literally click on a building and pull down the core data surrounding that building. Yeah. So it's pretty, it's the ability to, across multiple constituencies, enable innovation without you having to get hands-on. Becomes really exponential.
Ramondo and Corsping has done some incredible work. We're not there yet on the permitting side, but we're there doing other things. That's again why it's important not to no one's better than the other, but comparatively how we do it. A lot of our work has been focused on more so, I'd say, the video analytics, the video. We call it vision learning initially, but it's essentially video AI within intersections, which I can show you a little bit of. We've adopted the Vision Zero concept, and we're looking at creating smarter intersections, if you will. We also are developing a bus rapid transit system, which is essentially rail on wheels, but more importantly, a BRT uses smart data, smart intersections, vehicle data, so that the bus gets priority through the intersections safely, and it becomes like a rail because it does not stop at every intersection. So we're in the process of building the first line of our BRT of 4. Again, that's a slide that shows how it looks like a train station, but actually it is a bus, but acts like a train along a roadway. Right down to smaller projects where we're talking about smart lighting. This is the first project I was fortunate enough to be a part of here in Raleigh, where we deployed smart lights in a ethnic neighborhood, a community cultural center that provided also outdoor Wi-Fi mesh from the lights from a T-Mobile signal, i.e. not hardline. And secondarily, the lights are smart, so that they saved about we've estimated they're saving about $750 a month per light. So that adds up. That's being real smart, right? We've also, I mentioned the heat island work. We're very interested in doing more of that. We've done some climate modeling with some partners at a company called Eris. Looking at how if we build certain buildings certain ways, how the winds change and how or if you put in more green infrastructure, how that can improve the ultimately the cooling of the city essentially. Again, I talked about it earlier. Basically, GIS has been the core technology for this platform and our digital twin. Again, we talked about the variety of places to get data, and one of the primary areas of interest of ours is intersection work. Primarily, again, because that's one of the first things that our community asked about in our community survey was improving traffic flow, and not just traffic flow, but the safety of traffic flow for pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles. So again, we base this on what the community desires based on our community survey and our strategic plan. So why computer vision? It fits a number of use cases. I just mentioned the traffic and transit. It also, obviously public safety, also even parking management along roadways can be enhanced through using computer vision, for example. In the older days, not that old, even older than this, there were tubes put across streets, right? And you count cars and how they interact. And you tried to learn how to make an intersection safer. Well, again, with today's technology and moving into AI and video learning, we can do that. This isn't going to automate, but or animate. Basically, you learn how vehicles act at intersections, vehicles of different types. And ultimately, you tie that intersection to intersection, and you start to improve the way the traffic flows for safety reasons and efficiency. At the end of the day, the AI will be able to predict things like if a car stops in this intersection, what should the other intersections do? And it can do it a much faster, obviously, than a human can. We're not there yet, but that's where we're going with this kind of thing.
And John, this capability, does this combine both the computer vision and machine learning?
Yes.
Yeah. I saw your demo at that connected triangle, and I was very impressed. You have some
and we're still working to improve it. I mean, our first test, we were up to 90% or 95% accuracy on one intersection. But then when we essentially added people and bicycles,
Mm-hmm.
the AI and the video learning and the machine learning had to relearn it, and it didn't learn it as well. So we had to step back and say, okay, we got to get this better, right? So again, you continue to test and develop these things until you're 100% well.
Well, and this is some of the takeaways that I think are very important is that actually when you change the circumstances with AI, it then changes the entire dynamic. Is that
absolutely
what you're saying? Yeah,
absolutely. I would caution even the AI engine itself you're using. Everything that's built by a human is going to have some bias in it. So if you're using this company's AI or that company's AI engines, they're going to be inherently themselves a little bit biased, right?
yeah.
So again, it's real important to test these things, but it's happening fast, and we're trying to keep up with it, quite frankly. This is just some of the data about those intersections. But at the end of the day, smart cities and AI, we've got to think about various use cases. I mentioned the stormwater and street flooding, loading zones, how to improve those safely and more efficiently within buildings, parking utilization. Everyone, I've worked in a number of communities in my career. There's not one community that won't say they have bad parking situation. But the more we can use data, video data primarily, not exclusively, and the AI behind it, we can improve parking utilization. I mentioned our BRT and bus stops, even down to pavement conditions. One of the pilot projects we're exploring right now is a technology that will improve the accuracy and efficiency of our sidewalk maintenance, so that A, we're ADA compliant, and B, we have take the bumps and the cracks out of the sidewalks efficiently, right? And we can track maintenance and that kind of thing.
How do you identify issues? Is that automated yet, or?
Yeah, so let me see.
I know, for instance, in Orlando, where I live,
yeah,
and they have a very advanced smart city group, and they literally had counted every tree, and wanted to make sure what changed, and that sort of thing.
Digital twin. We have every city planted tree. Some are more. The data points are more accurate than others, so then you have to go out and keep up with the trees, right?
Yeah.
But the idea there is then you can actually do some other analytics based on tree types and canopy types, etc., for future planning, of course. So I would say there's the operational piece, such as such as the sidewalk piece in terms of prioritizing. And then there's the strategic piece, which goes back to our strategic plan, right? For example, or another plan like our meeting our Vision Zero goal, right? That's strategic, right? So what are we doing? How are we prioritizing some of the tests and pilots to meet that versus, and at the same time, the operational pieces to make sure we're being most efficient with parking management, for example. So it's a balancing act in any community, of course, with limited, you can't do it all, right? Financially or staff capacity. This last slide I was going to show you, we did some. There's a 2 or 3 maturity models that are out there. NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. There's one developed in Amsterdam, and we this is not rigorous to the extent I would publish it, but I'll share it with you. We basically looked at ourselves up here, and I mentioned how mature a smart city may be, and we're still, at in an early stage of maturity. There's others that may be, more advanced than us, but it's something we have to continue to work at, and I'm excited to be here and be a part of it here in Raleigh. And I would add, as you mentioned, across the region. So,
where did you get the data for that study of the different cities?
It was really a self-assessment, quite frankly. The Amsterdam model and the NIST model are pretty qualitative. It's not like down into the data details. It's more, how have you structured yourselves? How are you operating? How are you addressing citizen needs and that kind of thing, vis-a-vis technology and data? So I ran through a bunch of slides there. I'd be glad to go back to them, but at the end of the day, it's a tremendous undertaking in any community of any size. And so one of the things, using our digital twin as a backbone, I think we're in a position to help ourselves improve the efficiency of it, and perhaps our neighbor communities around the region as well.
In my mind, the digital twin is at the heart of the smart city. And when you see, like Coral Gables, I've been doing work with them for years, and you see the ability to run scenarios and include people, and then the imaginations take off, and a politician will go over to the IT guy and say, hey, could you look at it this way, because he understands the community.
Sure.
And then when they look at that, the insight pops right out.
Right.
You look at the data and the picture and the model. So
when you look at some of the intersection work we've done, you see that someone crossing a crosswalk at the wrong time and how that impacts traffic. It says, okay, yeah, and we can now track back 2 intersections behind that, right, and say how does that impact that, because it's all a connected network at the end of the day. So absolutely, that's where we're building upon again the integration foundation for sure.
And so let me, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but let me just ask again about the connected triangle and the regional cooperation.
Sure.
We've actually had an event in Cary in the past, and we know how well their beautiful park and some of the other, ways the citizens really feel the impact of these technologies.
Sure.
Talk some more about the value of the university ecosystem and your neighbors as well.
I was just invited to a small presentation / panel in Morrisville, which is another small community next door to both of us in Cary. And yes, of course, we have 3 major research institutions within 30-40 miles of each other here in the triangle. That's the name. But one of the things when I came here and started the work here in Raleigh and started to strategically do the work, again, the work was happening. I thought, look, at the end of the day, we've got to work as a region, and we're still trying to figure that out. Quite frankly, it's not easy. I mean, as I said, it's hard enough to break down silos in your own city, let alone across the jurisdiction. But we're also, supporting and helping one another as we can, right? I met recently with Ted and Nicole over in Cary, and just I was in Morrisville. We're doing this heat monitoring project across Chapel Hill, Orange County, which is further to the north and west. And we hope to bring in, they're doing it in Cary too. So we just have to find the time to say, hey, let's do this thing together and sit down and literally plug the pieces together. I would just say that regional work in this environment is harder, but it's valuable. It's important to do, and it just takes a little bit more time and commitment from some of the, if I would say, larger communities like Raleigh, that can, again, not that we're better or worse than anyone, but we have a little more human capacity to help bring these things together. So the Connected Triangle Plus is that nascent regional smart city effort. We're doing a couple projects where we're sharing data, and we hope to do more.
Well, it's apparent when I visit the effects, and I really appreciate that. And I think you've got a big event coming up in March of next year, and I know I'll be there.
We're hosting Smart Cities Connect. A number of your viewers, I'm sure, are aware of that event. So some of the things you saw here today will be highlighted there, hopefully maybe even updated by then, as well as some of our regional efforts. And would love to see as many people as we can come and obviously enjoy downtown Raleigh, where we'll be having at the convention center.
Excellent. And I've posted your website for Smart Raleigh a few times up on the screen, so viewers can check that out. But John, I really appreciate you joining us, and we will see you at a minimum in March, if not sooner.
Thanks, Peter.
Take care.